Tell us about this one, Corey. This was a good one. I actually like this one because it's more practical and technical.
Are we talking about the broad match one, or are we talking about the other one?
Yeah.
Now
No,
I'm
the
lost.
broad
The
match.
broad
That's
match.
all the time we've got, mate.
Okay.
That's all the
I
time
was
we've
going to
got,
say,
mate.
we don't have enough time. All right,
Yeah.
this will be a quick one. So this is something that does come up from time to time where you have a non-brand. This is going to be more technical, guys. So the non-branded search campaign that is heavily reliant on broad match keywords, right? So if you're not super familiar, you're kind of getting used to all of this. Broad match is a very loose matched keyword match type. So in other words, if you just put in shoes, Google may just show for, I don't know, cleats and sandals and whatever. And it kind of makes sense. Like they're loosely represent what shoes are. I mean, that is what shoes are essentially. And okay, that's fine. Exact match says if I just want shoes, it's going to be mostly,
Yep.
mostly not nowadays. It's not exact, but it's as close to saying I
Yeah.
just want to bid on the word shoes. And then obviously phrase matches like you're allowing just that as well as anything around it, yada, yada, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So the problem here is sometimes you inherit an account, someone else has been running it, or the client has been doing it themselves, and they followed Google's advice, or they were just running an experiment that sort of just they didn't pay
Never
attention
ended.
to after a
Yeah.
few months, and then it's sort of like this 80% of the spend in this campaign is
Yeah.
broad match is coming from broad match keywords. Why is this so difficult? Well, if you find that it's rarely inefficient, or you just see that there's a possibility of getting more opportunity, more control out of having more concrete match types, using phrase, using exact, leaning less, or moving completely away from broad match, this is not as easy as it sounds. It's not as easy as pausing all those things and just launching.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing you can do, actually. So if you want a real practical tip from this conversation, make sure you don't just kill all those broad match keywords. Those things have been learning for a long time. And if you kill them, you're going to have this sharp decline in performance, and it's going to have to grow itself back up with the exact in the phrase. So anyway, that is the premise for the topic. Michael, initial thoughts?
Yeah, mate. Well, I've actually already written down the notes of how I've done this before, and I've actually got a strategy around it. So
Perfect.
do you want to go your strategy first or mine?
Well, no, you're ready to go. Go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So in these cases where broad match has been running, you just want to audit all the broad match search, like the keywords, and actually look at which ones are getting clicks, getting impressions, and getting conversions. Like they're not all going to be equal. So there's going to be ones that you're just like, look, this is straight up crap, and you can probably turn it off, just like pause them. But there's going to be ones that have converted, and you'd either want to go on a key search, like a keyword level, or just like in the group, like the ad group or campaign level, and look at the search terms in there that converted.
Mm-hmm.
I would, and this is what I've done multiple times in the past, I would get a list of those search terms that have converted, or the ones that have shown a lot of like positive intent. I would download those lists. I'd put those ones into a new campaign as phrase and or exact. That way you've got the broad match campaign still running with all those keywords, but then you've got the search terms and the keywords that have actually converted. Now, I wouldn't now turn off the broad match that's triggered these, but I'd bid these a bit higher. So there's a bit more of a priority from Google for these keywords than the broad match, which was stimulating the same search term. After maybe a few weeks, 2 weeks, when there's enough data, I'd actually say, hey, are these search terms or these ones in the exact phrase match campaign converting at a similar number? CTRs are strong, whatever it is. And once that's happening, I would start to exclude these terms from the broad match campaign. So you've got the winning terms here. You're running them side by side. And then after 2 weeks, you'd exclude these terms. You get a list of these and exclude them from the broad match campaign. So the broad match campaign is still running, but now it's not conflicting with this second campaign. It can still do some keyword research and mining for you. But that way, you've moved it across here. You're getting it run side by side. Step two, then the next step would be transitioning these terms away from here. And then just slowly, I do everything with every single business. I always transition. I never, I'll run things side by side and transition rather than turn something off and then just activate something new. So yeah, I'd look at the search terms, create exact and phrase match of them, put them into a new campaign, let them run for 2 weeks, then exclude those from the broad match campaign, see what the impact is, and then just slowly transition away over, a month. Thoughts? Did that make sense?
No, that's you got it. Those are the big things. Those are the core. So
Nice.
when you cover everything, there's not much for me to add. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, just make sure that you guys are using n-gram analysis if you can. Um, when you're looking at the search terms, don't forget that. That's a core piece of doing a search query report (SQR). Um, I guess you could consider layering in different signals gradually. So if the existing campaign was just really broad, but sometimes you see this, but there's very narrow targeting, like they're only going after a few regions or states or whatever. If you want to start move as you're moving the keywords to a different match type, you can start layering signals on top of those: location, device, audience,
Yeah.
whatever. And then, yeah, you just want to slowly, like you said, just start slowly moving the budget down on that broad match one. But you can, if you want to, and you have the budget, you can still use that as a sort of keyword mining campaign. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be totally killed off. If it gives you some incremental lift over time, then it might be still a good strategy. I might lean a little bit more heavy towards DSA, dynamic search ads, as opposed to a broad match. But to each their own. Sometimes one works more than another, and you don't always know exactly why. It's not reading the tea leaves here. You just got to go off of performance and testing as usual. Yep.
You want to make sure as well as like you're clear with the outcome. The outcome is to have a cleaner account where you have more control over your search terms and it's not as broad and there's a high variability between search terms and even cost per clicks. So by transitioning from those broad match terms to search or exact, you know that the quality is improving. At least your control over the quality is improving or increasing the probability of it. Like once again, exact isn't exact, phrase isn't phrase, but you're increasing the probability of that cleanliness. The biggest risk with broad match campaigns, especially if the client or someone's run it in the past themselves, is number one, they've turned phrase and exact match into broad, and by Google's suggestion and Google's recommended they remove their negative keyword list. So broad match campaigns can work well, granted that at the like every single day or even multiple times a day when you've just launched it, you're checking the search term report and creating an aggressive negative keyword list. And then over time, that broadness isn't broad because you've got this negative keyword list, which is really narrowed it. But most of the time, if people have transitioned from or just gone broad from Google's recommendations, even their own, most likely they don't have a negative keyword list trying to keep it balanced. The negative keyword list will keep a broad match campaign balanced, but most of the time people don't do it consistently or properly. So I think that's the other part. But then once you transition it over to the exact or phrase one, you'd still need a negative keyword list, but you're probably not going to you're definitely not getting as many variable or irrelevant searches and clicks that you would be with the broad match campaign.
So, it's funny, and it's all good and well that we kind of agree, hey, this is how you usually want to transition, but sometimes it doesn't really work that well. And I think part of that and part of this conversation that you need to have with clients is setting the right expectations around this transition. It could be very rough because there is a lot of algorithmic learning that's occurred already here. And especially, and more often than not, it's also using smart bidding. So smart bidding is also leaning more heavily on the matching abilities of broad match. And when you start pulling stuff out of that and slowly moving budget away from it, you might see a lot of volatility, not to mention all of the muddying of the data that starts happening with attribution. Now you're not really sure if broad match was delivering conversions to other campaigns, and you won't fully understand that sometimes until you start transitioning away. So set the expectation. If you're ready for this and we're wanting to do this and we understand the risks, it is likely to be volatile in terms of performance. But again, like you said, the idea is long-term control and stability and creating a foundation that we can scale or save more money around. So just know going into it might be rough.
And that variability, as we're talking about, is I think there's a high probability because you're taking, if you've got a broad match campaign and it's got all these terms that did convert and you're pulling them into another campaign, now you've got two campaigns fighting against each other. So sometimes so now they're getting less of the high quality winners. Then you turn these off in this campaign or remove them. So the things that were actually making this go well, you're filtering down and then you're removing. Of course it's going to go poor because then you're just left over with crap. So that's the thing is that's what will happen is you're removing the things that are working to somewhere else so you have more control and more clarity. So the probability that there will be that volatility is very high because you're taking winners out of an environment to just be winners over here. But that environment that's built for like losing is probably just going to start losing now.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, can't stress it enough. Make this a gradual process, guys.
Yeah.
Take like a mid level, in terms of conversion velocity or whatever, take like a mid level broad match keyword in terms of volume and take that one out. And like, don't just take them all out at once. Like that is not a good idea. It's going to create too much volatility. Anyway, that's it. We're out of time.